If the husband dies, the wife is going to be fine.
Really?
Yeah. Widows are way happier than widowers. I told that to my wife, and she's like, huh. um, Widowers do really poorly, generally. Men do very poorly. And part of the reason is because these data are disputed, but more or less they're directionally correct. 60% of 60-year-old men say their best friend is their wife. 30% of their wives say their best friend is their husband. Women have more relationships. They have closer, deeper love relationships with non-related kin and with the adult children typically than the husband does. The husband's most intense companionate relationship typically is with the wife. And that's why that's an asymmetric stat. And that's what the data say. But yeah, for sure. I mean, back to the main point, hope is super critical.
On illness.
On everything. I mean, hope actually affects all sorts of physiological processes. And we know that when people lose hope, they give up. And when they give up, they don't take care of themselves. They don't do what they need to do. They don't exercise like they should. They're not as active. They're not talking to other people. Their minds are not stimulated. They don't eat right. They might use substances in ways that they shouldn't. And all of those things compound. So just at the physiological level, you'd see that you'd have degradation when there is no hope. And when you're 90, you can't afford it.
So a couple of weeks ago, I came across this article and I did this post where this man was talking about learning to live alone after his wife passed from cancer. He was with her for 42 years, and it definitely got some comment. So this woman said, I talked to a 76-year-old man recently who told me all the things that his deceased wife did for him, like clean and never complain. That's how he remembered her. And this woman, Millie C. at the bottom says, every man I know depends on his wife for social plans and are blindsided by loneliness when the wife is gone. Learn some social skills, dudes. Now let's connect some of this. We have been talking about the West 4B movement. We've been talking about the 4B movement. Lots of people in many different spaces, races, countries of origin are talking about the 4B movement. So we have already seen where men do not do as well when they don't have wives. We've seen it, despite the fact that they talk about women being the ball and chain and all of that. They just don't do as well. So it's going to be interesting as some women pull back, do their own thing, get their own homes, do more mommunes or Golden Girl type of communes. It's going to be interesting to watch what happens in one generation or two with the imbalance or balance of power that comes. Now, women are simply asking for men to help out in the home, participate in the home. Let me correct that, not help out in the home. Participate in the home with childcare duties, with chores, that kind of thing. Participate like an adult. And the men are like, no, they're looking for servants. They're looking for submission. So we're at a crossroads right now. It is going to be interesting to see how things work out. Now, just last year, I was doing articles. There were so many articles about men falling out of the workplace, just opting out of working, and they were living with probably women or their parents still. But as more women pull back, what will happen to those men? Also, in the same year, last year, they were talking about more women homeowners. So all of this put together is going to be a phenomenon that's going to be interesting to watch, especially with the falling birth rates. People are scrambling on that end. Is all putting all of this together is going to be interesting. Last year, there was an overwhelming amount of articles that was talking about how men were failing and flailing in life. Talking about how they're falling out of the workforce, how they're having a crisis of loneliness. There was just so many articles, it seemed like every month. This one from CBS Morning, millions of men have dropped out of the workforce, leaving companies struggling to fill jobs. It's a matter of national identity. So while these men get on these internets talking about how women need men and how they are protectors and providers and who's going to work on the roof and who is going to work on the car, they are failing and flailing to even go to work. So they probably should be focused on themselves rather than worried about women. A large number of American men, prime working age between 25 and 54 years old, are not working or even looking for work. resulting in a major hole in the American economy. In 1953, 98% of men in that age range had a job or were looking for one. That number has fallen ever since. Today, 7.2 million men have essentially dropped out of the workforce. It's a matter of our national identity, says Mike Rowe, the host of Dirty Jobs on Discovery. I think it's a giant issue, and by the time we realize how big of an issue it is, we're going to have a hard time turning the temperature down. It's not an issue rooted in the unemployment rate, which at 3.5% is the lowest it's ever been in 50 years. So what's behind the phenomenon? There are more jobs than workers. We have more jobs than we have people for. About 1.5 jobs for every one worker, says Jay Timmons, who leads the National Association of Manufacturers, an advocacy group based in DC that represents thousands of manufacturers across the country. Timmons describes all this as a profound problem for the companies he represents. The number one challenge for most of them right now is filling open jobs. I never thought I'd be able to say that, but it's now a kind of all hands on deck. We've got to fill these jobs that are open. More than 770,000 manufacturing jobs are open right now, according to the latest federal count from November. The number has surged in recent years as companies reinvest in American made products or try to. With manufacturing workers earning more than $30 on average, Timmons said the problem is not pay, but the perception. It used to be dirty, dark, and dangerous. Today is very sleek and very technology driven. So basically, anybody can do these jobs, even women. Okay, not just perception. Carla Trotman, CEO of ElectroSoft, a company outside of Philadelphia that makes circuit boards, says she wishes 45 people work there instead of 30, but that she can't find people to fill the roles, costing the company around $5 million in top line revenue, as she has been forced to turn down potential contracts. She suspects some people may be sitting out because of the recent change and how many of us look at work. I think it's fulfillment. I think it's culture. I think people really want to feel as though they are appreciated. Understand that throughout history in this country, women globally, not just this country, women's work has been underpaid and undervalued. So we're all in the same boat. I don't know how it's going to work out with these men falling out of the workforce and not working because they have to be living somewhere. They have to be living with a parent or a woman. But here in my network, we're saying, women, pull back. And the ladies are listening. The ladies are working. The gap between men and women in the workplace is at a record low. Okay, so the graph, the U.S. labor force participation rate, men are green. And like I said before, in that other graph, it was at 98% in 1960, and it has been steadily coming down. Women's participation rate has been steadily increasing to the point where the gap is this big instead of this big. So women are working. We're seeing that we have to get it done, and we're making it happen. Women are closing in on men in the workplace. Why it matters. For decades, a far higher share of men worked than women. Now that gender gap is the narrowest it's ever been, according to the latest data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. The big picture, women are crushing it in the labor market right now. Their return to work from the pandemic has been faster than men's. The gender pay gap is also the narrowest on record. Single women right now make just as much or maybe more in some areas than men do. And that's because if they have not had children, they're not faced with that mommyhood penalty. So women opting out and pulling back from having kids or having kids so young is really helping the numbers and the gender pay gap. A big part of this is the rise of remote and flexible work, which has enabled a record number of women with young children to enter or remain in the workforce. And this has been clutch because times past women had to fall out of the workforce because childcare is too expensive or is scarce. Now women can still work. And that is amazing because obviously we need to be able to keep money going. And if these men are going to fall out the workforce, women have got to make it happen. So this article was put out last year. So this what to watch, we are watching. It is happening. It says the so-called child care cliff. COVID area funding for child care runs out this month, which was last year. And many predict this could put some daycares out of business and force them to raise fees. that could push some parents, particularly mothers, out of the workforce and come back home to look after kids. And that we've talked about the child care crunch. And this is in part why some women are opting out of motherhood, because childcare is a big part of it, and not having childcare is a big part of it. And the fact that it is so expensive, it is unattainable. So without some entity reworking how it's paid for, is going to cause women to opt out, because we have to go to work regardless, because money has to happen. We have to have money for rent, for the cost of living, for food, and all of that. And greedflation has made it so that one income is not enough. So that is pretty much the bottom line. Babies will not be born. The birth rate will continue to tumble, and it should. Regardless, though, the whole point of this is that women are working. I'm going to pull it back to this graph talking about the labor force participation. I'm so happy to see where women are going regardless, because like that woman was saying in that article, there's a lot of people are not fulfilled. A lot of people are not fulfilled at work. But regardless, we have to get it done. We need to work. We need money to pay for life. So women are still going to work, still getting it done. Anyways, you guys jump in the comments. Let me know what you think about this. I know that I'm kind of all over the place, but I'm still trying to bring things together. It's going to be interesting watching how the 4B movement impacts society. So we have the global 4B movement, and we have the West 4B movement for here, for the women here. And it's going to be interesting because I just yesterday, I saw so many people talking about it. And for whatever reason, the men are pushing back. But then also in the social media streets, women have been denigrated, for sex, or because we're not really great partners, um, all kind of things. Men don't want to get married, so you would think that they wouldn't have an issue with this 4B movement, but that is not what I'm hearing when I'm listening to the men push back on the 4B movement. But regardless, ladies, keep pushing to get the houses, keep pushing to be homeowners. Ladies, keep pushing our daughters to go to school, because we are outperforming men in school. Ladies, keep pushing our daughters to be in the labor market, because we need to make money, we need to survive. All of these things, we need to keep getting it done, because regardless of what they are doing, we need to be able to survive one way or another, survive and thrive, come together, create a world where we can survive no matter our marital status, no matter if we have kids or not, be able to create community. Okay, now I have wrapped up this portion of for today. Let me know what you think about all of this and how I put this together. I know I'm kind of all over the place, but let me know what you think. Like, comment, share.